when you're making a new version of or sequel to a classic movie or TV show, in certain cases of extremely passionate fan bases, you're going to need severe guts just to finish and release the bastard, because you got to realise going in that lots of people will probably hate it no matter how good or bad it is, and not for what it is, but for what it isn't, if you catch my drift. I'm not typically one of those people, but in the case of Watership Down, the 1978 animated movie, my favourite movie ever, impacted me so deeply that it's now practically woven into my DNA. And that appears to be the case with lots of people, so this was quite dangerous hallowed ground to be treading on in the first place. And you can't exactly blame anyone for the collective toys being thrown out the pram back in 2016 when the press release announcing that they're making the new version included the phrases toning down and more appropriate for children. Given how people tend to react to those two phrases in general, and how they were always going to react in this case, given Watership Down is infamous for its brutality, the fact that someone working on this project didn't seem to realise just how much those two phrases were always going to piss people off did make me go, oh shit, who's got their hands on my Watership Down here? And thus I made that video. However, we all make mistakes, and that was very early on in development, and almost all of the sentiment expressed in that opening press release is completely absent from the finished product. Watership Down 2018 isn't anywhere near as violent as the 78 movie, but it's still dark as fuck and has its moments of gore, and fortunately has been allowed to be what it is. It's a crushingly heavy story about a band of creatures working together to survive in a cruel, uncaring world where death lurks around every corner. Man, beast, even your fellow rabbits are snares that will catch you, and when they catch you, they will kill you. But first, they must catch you. Watership Down's never been an easy story for an audience to hear. It's confrontational, never sugar-coated, but its message is one that kids need to hear eventually, so why not tell it now and with rabbits? And toning it down and making it more appropriate would miss the point, and fortunately whoever said that has had it pointed out to them, and we got a decent new adaptation of Watership Down out of it, so that's alright then. The new version takes a lot more cues from the book than the original movie, and when the source material's as strong as this, you're never likely to go that wrong. Unfortunately, that may have lost some people, and as someone very familiar with the story, I recognise that a lot of this stuff may go over the heads of those less familiar with the source material. I love the Lapine language that the rabbits use, and the book explains it really well. It kind of makes sense that rabbits have their own nouns for modern human inventions like cars and other specific actions that don't translate easily for humans, just like how different languages will have certain expressions that just don't translate. And this adaptation's employment of Lapine words is very casual, and you'll pick it up if you're paying attention, but I can understand if some people have found it a bit obtuse and confusing. The reason I love its employment though is that it's true to Watership Down's purpose of weaving recognisable societal infrastructure for rabbits. They have social hierarchy, oral folk tales, religion, their own language. But it all feels as though it's emerged organically. There's aspects of society that we recognise, but very little anthropomorphism going on. It's written in a way that makes it feel as if it's genuinely a rabbit's experience that's been translated into a language that humans can understand. If you're ever driving past a field and see a load of rabbits hopping together, it may look just like some cute fluffy creatures to you, but Watership Down flips the perspective and shows a tale of survival going on. Little scenes like this one, where they're examining a piece of litter and trying to understand what it is and why a human would put it there, work wonders to encourage the viewer to think about how things look from an animal's perspective. The humans that live with me have a strange, feathery bird on a stick. I do not understand the bird on a stick. I try and catch it, yet every time I do, I bite into it, and it does not bleed. It escapes and continues flying. Such a strange species. It only really dawned on me as I grew up how Watership Down is essentially a lesson in empathy. It shows you the world from the perspective of an animal who doesn't understand why humans are bulldozing their homes and why humans don't seem to think twice about shooting their friends. It just makes you stop and think. This is how we look to rabbits. They don't understand why we're doing what we're doing. They don't know what housing development is. This is how they think of men because this is all they know of us. And it just makes you want to ask yourself, do you really want anyone or anything to think of you like this?
Hazel was right. There's a terrible evil in the world, and it comes from men.
Yeah, but if men are so bad and nature is so good, then how come men have achieved so much and wrote all the smartest books like Brief History of Time and The Dictionary? What's a bunny rabbit ever done? Invented space travel yet, you little bunny rabbit? No. Pathetic. Okay, I can see why some may find Watership Down a bit preachy, but I still think it's an ideal empathy lesson for young adults growing up and forming their own views on the world. The story's purpose has survived intact in this new version, so bringing this tale to a wider audience is only a good thing in my book. Of course, I could then go into questioning its purpose as a more faithful adaptation when the book's there, the movie's there, both are already perfect, so what do you need this new one for? And that question comes up a lot when comparing an adaptation with a book or a remake with the original, because if an adaptation's just there to put the book on the film or just do the original film again without adding much to the experience, then what's the point? I know everyone always talks up being a faithful adaptation when comparing like for like, but I prefer a mix of both, and a straight transposition doesn't always sit right with me because I could just go and read the book again. And this is much more faithful to the book than the 78 movie was. But I do think it would be hard to argue that the 2018 version doesn't add anything to the experience, as while the liberties it takes with the source material aren't as bold as the 78 movie, and amount more to cutting stuff out than adding its own spin on events, I accept it because I got the same chills from Fiverr's visions, which are really nicely realised. I truly lost myself in some brilliant performances from some of the biggest, best British actors in the game. James McAvoy as Hazel and John Boyega as Bigwig are exceptionally good, and Peter Capaldi is inspired casting as Kiar. Nicholas Holt's no Richard Briers when it comes to Fiverr, but that's a very hard performance to live up to, and he acquits himself admirably in the role. Also, the new version does beef up the roles of the Ephrath and Does, which does a great deal to emphasise the oppressive environment of Ephrath, which is essentially rabbits operating a totalitarian regime under the guise of protecting its citizens from the 1,000 enemies of rabbits. Anne-Marie Duff as Hyzenthley is particularly good. I don't know if it's just me, but I just get totally engrossed whenever this story's told. It's a wild, brutal ride as the rabbits are forced to stay alert to any dangers. I particularly enjoyed the Cowslips Warren sequence. It's wonderfully disconcerting. Watership Down's meant to be truly dangerous and make you feel how a rabbit feels and treat every situation with caution. A lot of people have been complaining about the animation, which I think is fine. Actually, on a budget of 20 million for a 200-minute miniseries, it's a fucking miracle. Oh, but it looks like a PS2 game. Yeah, because PS2 games were never effective. I mean, sure, Silent Hill 2 could have been an intense experience of psychological horror, but it was all slightly blurry and pixely, and that is why it is not good. Therefore, Silent Hill 2 sucks and is shit. Also, people who say it looks like a PS2 game, you do have eyes that can look at things, right? I haven't really been able to take the complaints about the animation all that seriously, because I'm generally of the opinion that a story that's good enough can survive anything. I mean, I grew up watching reconstructions of missing Doctor Who episodes, which were literally just the soundtrack and low-resolution JPEGs and captions emphasising movement. Watership Down is a good enough story to survive bad visuals, and the spirit of the story has been captured beautifully in the script and performances, so therefore it survives them to me. Not even survives them, I really like the animation, I think it suits it. And if you actually stop and look closely, you'll see that considering the 20 million budget, it actually looks pretty damn good. The environments are quite dark and dingy, and that's the point. It's meant to be an oppressive and bleak landscape. They've done a particularly good job with Ephrath. But Stuart, they look like hares, not rabbits. Yeah, you may have a point, but I don't care, alright? That's Hazel. That's Fiverr. That's Bigwig. They're trying to forge their own warren and survive in a cruel, uncaring world and outsmart their enemies. I don't care if they look more like hares than rabbits. Watership Down's not a nature documentary, it's a survival story with animals, and again, a good story can survive anything. Does Wallace and Gromit A Grand Day Out look perfect? No. Is it perfect? Yes. It is charming. The animation is appropriate for the story. Ugh, the animation in this new version's so bad, but they got really big names. Did they blow all the budget on the voice cast? Okay, patronising explanation of why this statement that I've seen fucking everywhere is wrong. Okay, £20 million sounds like a lot of money to you, but in terms of movies and TV shows, it's fucking piddly. Inside Out is 95 minutes long. It cost $175 million. Watership Down 2018 is 200 minutes long. It cost £20 million, and it's got very niche appeal. Be reasonable. So yeah, I don't think it's particularly bad animation. When you're immersed in the story, the dark and intimidating landscape takes on a life of its own. So yeah, overall, everyone was making the watering shit down joke at the press release, and the final product is anything but. It's a respectful adaptation that brings the text to life in a way that doesn't feel redundant. With superb casting, a great score, and yes, I like the animation, alright? It was a brutal and crushing experience and heartbreaking at times, but that's what Watership Down's supposed to be. I don't like it more than the movie, of course, but that was never going to happen, let's be reasonable here. And I do like that it's a very different beast. The 78 movie's very abstract and more visually creative and is a fucking masterpiece, but this new one's a fine tale of survival with animal characters on the lowest end of anthropomorphism possible, and you just don't see that every day. I'm genuinely surprised they actually managed to do it. It's got much more niche appeal than other animated talking animal narratives, and marketing it as Christmas TV for a mainstream audience is a bit weird because not everyone's gonna be up for this, but, you know, they did it. They made a decent CGI rendition of my favourite book and movie, and yeah, I loved it.
No, strange immortal bird on a stick, you are mine now. There is no escape.